Good morning, everyone. I'll ask those of you here at Blue Water to find a seat and your conversations. Welcome to all of you in person. We have a great group gathered here this morning. Welcome to all of you online. We apologize for those of you who had some difficulty. We had to change our settings to go beyond our typical 100-person limit. So that's a great thing to do. Have a quick view of our online gathering for those of you joining us, of our in-person gathering. You can see we've got a good group here at the auditorium. It's been great weather this weekend. We're looking forward to a great gathering throughout the rest of today and tomorrow. So I want to thank everyone for participating in the conference this year and make a couple of introductions before we start our business session. First, we have our conference secretary, Joey Kernstock, is over at the table to my left. Up with me, doing technical assistance is Linda Stanbridge. So for those of you online, hopefully you have Linda's number from the email this morning. Those of you who are delegates, to contact her by text. Once you're in the meeting, you can chat with her as well for participating by Zoom. We also want to say thank you to Jessica Montague, who's doing the online check-ins and some voting things. We also have a crew in the back that is doing the in-person check-in. I think those are youth from the Spiral congregation, so thank you to them. We have Ben Crowley helping us with our voting devices, our audio and technical things throughout the evening. We greatly appreciate Ben for pulling all this together. And finally, we have some youth activities that are going to be led by Erica Nye and Abby Nowitzki, and I think some others who are helping with that. Erica, was there an announcement you needed to make now about youth going over to the gym? Okay, so everybody here who has brought younger youth, they're going to be doing some activities in the back right now. Eric will be with them. They're going to walk over in about 15-20 minutes. So go with the group. If not, you can take them over individually when you may need to throughout the morning. If the credentials committee has their initial numbers yet, doesn't look like it. Okay, so we're waiting just a few moments to get our initial numbers tallied up of in-person and online so that we can move forward with that. The chair will direct you in your conference materials to begin looking at page 3. That's where, after we get our credentials reports, we will consider the standing rules. So while we're getting the final people from the waiting room into the Zoom session online, if those of you at the check-in table at the back, Lisa or Aaron, if you could count up how many in-person people are checked in so far and give us that number, and then we'll add that to what we have so far online. This will just be an initial credentials report. Delegates can continue to register, check in here in person and online. If you want to come up to the mic, just so they can hear you online. The chair will recognize Lisa Meyer for initial credentials report. All right, and thank you. We're working on our microphone from the floor.
Okay. We have 80 registered in person, Dan.
All right, thank you. And you have a guess yet, Jessica? 160? Okay, so at this time, the credentials report has registered 80 people in person and 160 people online for a total of 240. Math is correct. Delegates. Let's see. So the question is on the adoption of the credentials report. Are there any questions on the report? This would be the time if there are any issues for anyone who becoming a delegate. Everyone who's reported has been seated, so there shouldn't be any issues with being seated. The chair then seeks unanimous consent for adoption of the Credentials Committee report. Is there any objection to adopting the Credentials Committee report? Without objection, then the Credentials Committee report is adopted. We'll continue to get any final people in the waiting room and any others who might join us in person. And later we'll have an update on that number of 240, how many more might have joined since then. The Mission Center president and counselors proposed the 3 of the conference. The proposed standing rules have not changed since the previous conference and have been distributed in print with the meeting documents to all delegates. So the proposed rules will not be read unless there is a request to do so. The question before the conference is on the adoption of the conference standing rules as read. Is there any debate? For those online, be reminded that if you'd like to speak or ask a question, you'll need to use the raise hand feature under the participants tab where your reactions are located. That's how you will seek the floor to ask a question or speak in debates. Appears there are no questions. So proceed to vote on the adoption of the conference standing rules. We're going to attempt this with our polling systems to try it out here, start our conference and work through any glitches there might be on a relatively straightforward question. So those in person will be voting using your clicking devices. Ben will be getting slides up for that in just a moment. Those online, we're going to try for this first question to use a poll. Session isn't. Linda, can you see if you have access to the poll? Okay, those joining by Zoom, we just launched a poll on shall the credentials report be adopted. You should be able to vote yes or no. And those in person, Ben, are you ready to? Getting both of our polling systems operating. We'll combine the numbers for in-person online to see our total votes. Yeah, we don't have, it's still not up yet. We're working on getting the in-person devices connected. If you're trying your device, as long as you're seeing a light, that means that the battery's good and it's working. It's not registering votes yet, but the device is working as long as you're seeing a light. Check right now, do you have battery life? Can you see a light flashing? And then once the polling opens, see the questions. All right, those in person, now you can try again, vote 1 for yes, 2 for no. Keep the conversations low, please. We do have sound that picks up online, so we need to keep any conversations very quiet. Okay, I'll ask Ben to close the polls in person. Okay. So it is clear there are 2/3 in favor of adopting the standing rules. And it appears both polling systems are now working. We're going to get the glitches to get the numbers showing up correctly. The standing rules are adopted. The tentative agenda for today is found on page 2 of the conference handouts. At this time, the chair declares the 2022 Michigan USA Mission Center Fall Conference officially organized for conducting business. For this rules for this conference are established by Community of Christ bylaws and procedures, the standing rules just adopted, and Robert's Rules of Order newly revised 12th edition. It is important that all delegates feel included and able to participate fully in the meeting. Please know that the chair will assist with shaping ideas and proposals into the appropriate motions. Delegates online via Zoom may seek recognition from the chair by using the raise hand feature. Those in person can approach the podium microphone here in the middle of the room. Messages may be sent via chat to Linda Stanbridge for technical assistance online. The chair may not see chat messages during the meeting. Please extend patience and grace with each other so that the focus may be on the decisions before the conference. Organizing and presiding over a large conference with in-person and electronic participation is a complex process. It is most important today that the conference can efficiently and effectively consider all items of business. May the blessings of community and unity and diversity be forefront in the minds of all delegates. The minutes from the fall 2021 Mission Center Conference have been approved by the Minutes Review Committee sustained at that conference. Those minutes are posted on the fall conference webpage. If there are any corrections, please inform the secretary. Okay, for those online seeking the raise hand feature, you're going to need to find your participants tab somewhere on your Zoom meeting controls. There should be an option to see participants, and there's probably 3 dots or something that says more. Under there, you would find the option to have reactions. You might see a hand raised. In order to prepare the ballot for elected board positions, final nominations will now be taken from the floor. All Community of Christ assets are owned and held in trust by the presiding bishopric. Mission Center officers and elected board members or appointed leaders are granted delegated authority from the presiding bishopric to manage and operate Mission Center assets. The board members being elected by the conference today will serve as fiduciary agents on behalf of the presiding bishopric and Mission Center Conference to exercise stewardship over the properties. Some key fiduciary responsibilities for elected board members have been posted on the Mission Center Conference website. At this time, nominations will be accepted for each campground board individually. The chair would direct delegates to page 34 for a list of nominees to serve on the Blue Water Campground Board of Directors. Richard Allen and Jim Danielson submitted nomination forms in advance and are listed in the printed materials. Jim Danielson passed away earlier this week, so Jim's name will not appear on the ballot. And at this time, the chair would ask the conference for a brief moment of silence to uphold Jim's family and friends during this time of grieving. Thank you. In addition to the printed names, Darlene Pauley and Trevor Varner have also consented to nominations. Are there additional nominations for the Blue Water Campground Board? Yes. If you could, yes. Those in person, when you have a question, nomination, or any motion or item of business, please come to the microphone so those online can hear you as well.
Polly, I would like to nominate Lori Kendrick Decker
Okay.
and Marcia Dugas.
Are Lori and Marcia here to accept or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I asked them.
Okay. Lori Decker and Marcia Dugas have been nominated. Are there any other nominations? Hearing no others and seeing no one seeking the floor, the chair will consider nominations for the Blue Water Campground Board closed. We'll continue with nominations and then return to elections in a moment. The chair directs delegates to page 34 again for the list of nominees to serve on the Park of the Pines Board of Directors. There are 5 positions open for election to 3-year terms on the Park of the Pines Board of Directors. Jamie Liss and Dusty Seifert have submitted nomination forms in advance and are listed in the printed materials. Additionally, Devorah Davis and Dennis Ormsby have also been nominated. Are there additional nominations for the Park of the Pines Board of Directors? No one is seeking the floor online or in person. So at this time, the chair will declare the nominations closed for the Park of the Pines Board of Directors. Delegates are directed to pages 34 and 35 in the conference materials for a list of nominees to serve on the Sanford Campground Board of Directors. There are 5 positions open for election to 3-year terms on the Sanford Campground Board of Directors. Wayne Addis, Amber Billman, John Congleton, Ben Crowley, Tammy Morford, William Persall, Courtney Valentine, Lisa Valentine, and Angie Varney submitted nomination forms in advance. Are there additional nominations? Yes.
We can nominate Gary Gordier.
Okay, and has Gary consented to that?
Yes.
Thank you. Gary Gordier is nominated for the Sanford Campground Board. Are there other nominations? Hearing no, there is.
I think this goes under the serve on that board for a number of years. Ken Dudley, who served on that board for a number of years, passed away this year, and I would request a moment of silence from his behalf on that position.
Thank you, Dave. Ask the conference for a moment of silence to recognize the contributions of Ken Dudley. Thank you. See no one else seeking the floor for nominations. Chair can declare nominations for the Sanford Campground Board of Directors closed. The chair would now direct delegates to the list of nominees to serve as 2023 World Conference delegates. The Michigan Mission Center has been allocated 175 seats to the 2023 World Conference. 75 individuals have submitted nomination forms in advance and are listed in the printed materials. Additionally, Donna Ritchie, Rebecca Henze, Adam Bouveret, Beth Bouveret, Melinda Johnson, Wanda Bouveret, Terry Johnson, Kathy Gaddy, Tim Lang, and Joey Kernstock have been nominated. Are there additional nominees for World Conference delegates?
Hey, Dan. Laura 2 would like to be nominated.
Thank you. Laura 2.
Pam Knight Stouffer should be on this list also. She was put in electronically about 2 weeks ago.
Pam Knight Stouffer.
Dave and Debbie Primo. We did it online, and got confirmation, so.
Thank you. Dave and Debbie Primo.
Just to nominate myself, Matthew Filer, and Kevin Gear.
Matthew Filer and Kevin Gear.
Craig and Diana Vanderkar, we did it online as well, Dan.
Craig Vanderkar and Diana Vanderkar.
Myself, Steve Bouveret.
Steve Bouveret,
Heidi Rabideau.
Heidi Rabideau,
Myself, Chuck Anderson.
Chuck Anderson, I believe we have a nomination for Mike Mead.
Also nominate Dennis Christopher, please.
Okay, Michael Mead and Dennis Christopher,
Thank you.
welcome.
Shirley Sashel.
Shirley Sashel, seeing no other nominations, the chair will consider nominations for 2023 World Conference delegates closed. Since there are fewer than 5 nominees for the Blue Water Campground Board and the election is by plurality, only 1 vote would be required for each nominee to be elected. The chair would seek unanimous consent for electing Richard Allen, Darlene Pauley, Trevor Varner, Lori Decker, and Marcia Dugas. Or there are 5 nominees for 5 positions, which again would take only 1 vote to elect each person. Is there any objection to electing the 5 nominees for the Blue Water Campground Board? Without objection, then, the 5 nominees are elected to the Blue Water Campground Board. Similarly, for Park of the Pines, there are fewer than 5 nominees for the 5 positions. So the chair would seek unanimous consent for electing Jamie Liss, Dusty Seifert, Devora Davis, and Dennis Ormsby. Is there any objection? Without objection, the 4 nominees are elected to the Park of the Pines Board of Directors. There are fewer than 175 nominees, even with all those added, for the 175 positions to World Conference delegates positions, which are also elected by plurality. So the chair would seek unanimous consent to elect all of the printed names and those added on the screen and by nomination to serve as 2023 World Conference delegates. Is there any objection? Without objection, then all of the nominees to World Conference delegates are elected. The chair can also continue to appoint delegates. So anyone who is interested in serving as a World Conference delegate can contact the Mission Center president in the coming weeks and months until the deadline might be set by the World Conference Credentials Committee to be added to that list. So please do reach out in the coming months. There will be announcements shared to fill those remaining seats. The ballot will now be prepared for the election of directors to the Sanford Campground Board. The ballot will be distributed electronically to delegates registered with an email address provided. Those who are attending in person without email addresses will need to see Jessica at the side table to either provide an email address if you have one, or to get a paper ballot. Those are only available to individuals who did not provide an email address when registering for the conference. On the electronic ballot, the nominees will be randomly ordered on each ballot. The chair is aware that members often express concern about determining how to vote for nominees to elected position when candidates are unknown to them or they are not involved with a particular board or ministry. Brief biographical information for nominees submitted in advance is gathered and printed for the consideration of delegates. It is the right of each delegate to abstain or not vote on any item of business for which the delegate does not have a position. This means if you are not involved with a particular campground or do not have an opinion on who should serve as a director for a particular campground, you do not have to vote for directors on that campground. In this case, there will only be one election for the Sanford Campground Board of Directors. So you can choose not to vote in that election. If you still want to cast your ballot, but don't want to select anyone, there is a box to check abstain, and that will cast your ballot without voting for any nominees. You can also vote for 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 of the nominees. You do not have to cast all 5 of your votes. You can vote for as many or as few as you want to on the list, up to 5. Are there any questions about conducting the election by ballot for the Sanford Campground Board at this time before we open the polls? Okay, we'll take a few minutes for the chair and the staff to get everyone registered into the polling system and to finalize that ballot. So within about 10 minutes or so, that ballot should be going out to your email accounts. Don't look yet. It's not going to come until we add that Gary Gordier is the final nominee, and then take off all of the individuals who did not attend conference today from receiving the ballot. But that should be coming to you soon. And once you receive it in your email, you can vote at any time as the meeting continues to go on, or if you need to go over and get a paper ballot, you can do that as well. If you're on that list of not getting it by email, but you have one, if you can provide that to Jessica at the table so that we can get it sent to you, we will work on that throughout the meeting. At this time, the chair will recognize Lachlan Mackay, apostle to the Northeast USA Field, and Dina DeVormer, Northeast USA Field Support Minister, to bring greetings from the World Church and share updates with the conference.
Hello, friends. I bring greetings from President Veazey and the First Presidency and want to express our profound gratitude for all you are doing at every level in service to the church. This is a challenging time to be about this work, and the pandemic has added significantly to that challenge. Larger cultural trends mean that Christianity is rapidly shifting from the majority religion in the US to a minority religion here. And we are, of course, seeing this decline play out in our own congregations as well. The Bible is full of garden and agricultural analogies, and talk of seeds seems particularly relevant for the situation that Christianity is facing. 20th century Jewish philosopher Rabbi Dessler had this to say about seeds. You plant a seed in the ground, and in a few weeks it begins to sprout. We know the cause is planting and watering. The effect, sprouting, seems ordinary, but is it really? Does it make sense that when a living seed is buried in the ground, it first decays only to germinate and produce new life? Is it not actually some form of resurrection? Indeed it is. If it would happen with a human being, it would be called a miracle, while with a seed, it is called natural and taken for granted. The question facing us today, the question with an answer we are living into, is where do we see the seeds of God's future? We find ourselves in the in-between, no longer what we have been, but not yet what we are called to become. It is an uncomfortable place for many, myself included, but I also find it a little exciting. I find it exciting because I believe that Christianity is at its best when it is on the margins and about service, not power. When it is about service, not power. Friends, I'm realistic about the challenges facing us, but I also see the opportunity for the seeds of God's future being planted and nurtured through the time, talents, and treasure made available because of the changes we are going through. President Veazey has started a discussion about the challenges and opportunities, the seeds before us, with a series of videos called The Way Forward. Communications. We'll also try and drop a link into the chat. I strongly encourage you to track down and watch these messages. They will set the stage for conversations to take place at the 2022-2023 World Conference and beyond. He also touches on several of the proposed World Conference resolutions to be considered. Please join us on Sunday morning when I will review that legislation in detail. I'll close with a quote from President Veazey's last Way Forward message. These are unsettling, disruptive, demanding, and opportune times. We can allow ourselves to be paralyzed by uncertainty and conflict, or we can keep growing and transforming in Christ as we respond to opportunities and challenges. Let's be and do all we can to move into the future with courage, creativity, and commitment. Let's surprise ourselves and others as we grow in love, faith, ministry, invitation, generosity, and bold action with God. We'll now turn to Dina, who's going to be sharing some updates, including on Bridge of Hope.
Good morning. Just give me a second here to share my screen. Almost there. All right. Let's see. Well, I'm not sure why it is not just starting. There we go. So hopefully you can see that all right. I'll move my little thingy off to the side here. All right. As Locke indicated, I'm going to share some financial updates with you. I am hopeful that you can all see the screen without a whole bunch of extra stuff that I'm seeing on mine right now. So this very first slide is one that I'm hopeful that you have seen on the church's website or through the e-news that has come through. This is showing our Bridge of Hope retirement responsibility for the entire church. Many of you will remember that we are in the process of trying to achieve $120 million by January 1 of 2024. And on this slide, you will see that we have made significant and wonderful progress of $103.9 million. This is as of June 30 of 2022. Then we have $16.1 million remaining. So it's always fun to see that purple get a little bit larger each time that we see this. And we are making great progress because of how everyone is pulling together for this combined responsibility. Well, I am not, there we go. So this next one is showing our particular field's progress towards our goal. And I'm sorry, I'm getting so distracted because I have all these things popping up. So at any rate, so in order for us to achieve our goal as a worldwide church, we established individual responsibilities for each of the fields of the church to accomplish. For our field, the Northeast field, which is made up of 5 mission centers, Michigan being one of those 5, our particular share of the goal was $6,720,000. You'll see on this slide that we have received over $5 million, which is about 77% of the progress, and that we have about 1.5 million to go. So just shy of 23%. So this is a great number. It is much better than what it was when we would have last chatted last fall. And that is due, as I said, primarily to just generous folks providing support through congregations, mission centers, and property sales. This next slide shows our progress for each of the 5 mission centers. This slide should not be viewed as a competition slide by any means. It is only presented so that you can see that all 5 of our mission centers within the field are adding to our progress. For this particular conference, since we are in Michigan, I will point out Michigan's bar on here, and you'll see that Michigan has provided $1.5 million of the total progress that we have made so far, which is about 29%. But you'll see on here that all 5 of our mission centers, which are of varying sizes and various abilities, have all contributed significantly to help us meet this goal together. On this slide, you will see that each of our 5 mission centers have also contributed to it from both property sales and community gifts. The red ones are showing the community gifts. What I mean by community gifts are those that are coming from mission centers and from congregations. Property sales, I think it's self-explanatory what property sales are. You'll see that we have the largest portion from all of our mission centers of support has come from property sales that we've had within our field. Whoops, I went back too far. So, all right, so this one shows some of the same information, but a slightly different presentation. And on here, you'll see, as I said before, that the bulk of how we've made our progress has been through property sales, so just over $4 million. So almost 79% of the amount that we have received so far has come from property sales. Community gifts are a little bit more than $1 million. Of that property sales, there are 30 property sales in our field that have made up that little more than $4 million amount. We do also have one other property that is currently under contract to be sold. It actually is scheduled to be closed this coming week, but this is not reflected in these numbers until we actually receive it. And there are also 3 other properties that are currently listed for sale. Church-wide, there have been 136 properties sold, and within the US fields, 125. But our portion here in the Northeast field has been 30 property sales. The community gifts portion, which is the one that's a little more than $1 million, or about 21% of the progress that we've made, is consisting of 4 of our 5 mission centers have provided community gifts to Bridge of Hope Retirement Responsibility in order to help us accomplish this objective together. There have also been 33 congregations, which includes 7 that are closed congregations and 26 active congregations out of 113 current congregations in our field. That means 26% of our total congregations in the field have responded to date. And I will say that that number, as I compiled this, was a little bit disappointing to me. While I'm thrilled and excited that there are 33 that have responded, I was a little disappointed that there were not more than that out of our 113. So I'm hoping that by the next time we see this, or the next time I get to share it with anyone, that that number will be greater. So in summary, to meet our field target, we need $1,543,411 by December 31st of 2023. If we do not meet our field target, loans from affiliate investment pool account minimum balances will occur in January 2024 for any shortfall. We do not want this to happen. Please help by encouraging your congregation to provide a gift to Bridge of Hope in your annual operating budget for 2023, or provide a gift now, or you could do both if you so chose. Congregation and mission center gifts are what I refer to as community gifts. They are different than individual gifts. An important note for CFOs and for MCFOs is to be sure to use the purpose code 947 in the Shelby contribution system for Bridge of Hope community gift. Individual gifts to Bridge of Hope are not the same as community gifts. And while individual gifts are important, they provide support to the overall objective of Bridge of Hope Retirement Responsibility, but do not assist us with our field share of the goal. This next slide is something that hopefully you have heard in your congregations since October 16th, or maybe even before, but we are in the term right now of the generosity cycle. And that is from October 16th to November 20. And you will see that there is a website that you can look for if you are not familiar with it. So, Giving Tuesday is November 29th, and I would encourage you to sign up now for e-tithing to help expedite the gift giving process on Giving Tuesday. There will be a special button available that will say Giving Tuesday. There will also be a special QR code that will be available on that day. So this is a big opportunity for the church to raise funds for Worldwide Mission Ties, and I encourage you to seek that out on November 29th. One last thing that I want to share in case you have not heard it is that there are offering envelope changes for 2023. Offering envelopes will no longer be mailed to homes for those of you who have been receiving them. Instead, pew envelopes will be available for CFOs to order from Herald House. If another alternative, as I've mentioned before, is e-tithing is a great alternative for this. And if you need help with it, you can ask me or Jessica, and we will be more than happy to help you get signed up for e-tithing. Thank you. And if you have any questions, my email address is my first name, DENA@seaofchristmi.org. And obviously, Dan and Jessica know how to reach me if you have any questions. So I will stop sharing this because the screen is driving me crazy anyway. So thank you so much for your attentiveness.
We'll now turn back to Dan.
Locke, we lost the video feed in the middle of your sharing. I'm not sure exactly what we missed, but I'm wondering if you have just a couple minutes summary or highlights of anything you wanted to share that we might have missed here in person.
Sure. Did you lose Dina as well, or just me?
We got all of Dina's. It was just yours. We got your start and end, but not in the middle. So I'm not sure.
Well, the primary thing is I want to make sure that folks have a chance to watch the Way Forward videos. I'm guessing you got that part. I think that is what is most important. These are challenging times, but I am hopeful. I really love the quote I shared, which you may or may not have heard. I think that our partnership with Constantine was a disaster for Christianity. And I think Christianity is best at the margins when it is about service and not power. So although these are very unsettling times for us, I think as we become not a majority in the US, which is quickly happening, we will have a chance to move back to that uncomfortable place, but maybe healthier place when Christianity can be more about service and less about power. And I'll send it back to Dan.
Thank you, Locke. At this time, we're going to continue with reports of officers. The ballot list is not quite completed, so it has not been sent out to your emails yet. So don't be looking for it quite yet. It'll be there soon. We get the next break to do that. At this time, the chair will I'll be asking conference delegates we'll be directing conference delegates to the Mission Center President Report, which starts on page 4. The report is printed there for your reference to read. The chair would only highlight that this past year has been a success in relaunching camping ministries, and we'll be sharing more about that throughout the day. There is still a goal needed to be met for funding the Sanford Family Camp expenses. It's much lower than it was when we started due to a very generous gift. We also have needs to continue funding our youth camps for the year. And that conference is a time when we traditionally take up an offering. So those of you online can do that through the Mission Center website or e-tithing or through your offering envelopes with your local CFO. Those in person, we're going to be having lunch and dinner over in the lodge, and the donations for both of those meals will go to youth camps. So you can make that over in those offering plates. And then also, if any of you are making contributions for the conference cost itself, once we pay all of our expenses for supplies and licenses and our fees to the campground for usage this weekend, all the extras will also go to the youth camping fund. So give generously to the lunch and dinner, or just give to the conference costs, and the extra will be applied. We'll update you in a couple of weeks about the remaining total needed for youth camps and have that as our local Giving Tuesday request later in the month, in addition to the worldwide request. Included in the Mission Center President Report is a recommendation for Resolution 1. So the chair would ask delegates to turn to page 45 for the resolution entitled Mission Center Diversity Team. Before the resolution is put before the conference, the chair would ask for any questions. Not yet a time for debate, but are there any questions that would not be rhetorical that you would want to ask information about Resolution 1? Chair recognizes Patricia Clapham.
I just had one question, and I had asked it of someone earlier, but you guys have been so busy that she probably didn't have time. My question was, who are the names on this list of the Mission Center Diversity Team? It explained that they were part of another group that was discussing different things, but it didn't name their names in that particular spot either.
The current naming, claiming, and acting the change team member names are listed at the bottom of page 32 in the conference materials. This year's committee report at the bottom of page 32. Then later in the conference, we'll be asking for a sustaining vote on the proposed team members for 2023. And those will be found on the bottom of page 40. Are there any other questions? Chair recognizes Kelly Christian.
Beside congregation. I just have a question for the Mission President. The dialogue on that part, it's an appointment by the Mission President. What kind of thought process is that versus that election or application was one appointment? More appointments based on your circle of people or presence or not the role, but what kind of thought process thought from appointment to at large or much different?
Yeah, the recommendation is for appointment and then sustaining, which follows the pattern for the Earth Stewardship Team that was approved by conference resolution in 2013. It would be up to this body if the body wants the team appointed or elected in a different way. I think the thinking of the chair is that this team is an advisory team. It's assisting congregations and Mission Center officers, similar to the Mission Center Council, but with a specific focus. And we've not considered the complexity of having a formal election process for that. The body could ask that today or change it in the future. Seeing no further questions then, the question before the conference now is on the adoption of Resolution 1, which reads, Resolved that a Michigan Mission Center diversity team be appointed annually by the Mission Center president for the purpose of gathering resources, collecting data, sharing recommendations, advising Mission Center staff and ministry leaders, providing educational materials, and pursuing projects that support and encourage efforts to enhance and promote diversity, equity, and inclusion in Mission Center ministries and congregations. Is there any debate? You come up to the microphone. Chair will recognize Josie Dalton.
So I'm in favor of this, is that what you're asking for? It's not coming through, because I know in the back of here, but anyways, I am for this, I'm gonna address the body. I am a regular mom. And last year at camp, I had 2 transgender children, and no idea where to go back. And while the church would think that those questions would solve, it was a very difficult time. Exhausting time for the week, because one of my children had to get up at 3 a.m. to shower, and just pretended to be a girl for the week. Right? These tackle these issues, and they go on with it, because it's not something that pray with, it's not a change, it's not gonna go away. We need to be fair and equitable to every procedure. And part of our acceptance is declaring where it's safe to be, and what people can do, so they don't have to think twice, they can just go to reading like everybody else, and be turned through, without wondering if something as simple as you did that.
Chair recognizes Pam Knight Stouffer.
On this committee, which I think is extremely important, I'm wondering about the diversity of those on the committee as far as age, gender, etc. And we are representing all groups here. And I'm wondering, in including, if we're touching all those bases, which I'm sure you're trying to do, but I'm talking age groups. If we have different age groups represented, then they might be able to be able to learn, tolerance, and to be able to figure out the best way to love each other. So, this question for information as far as how that's coming together and the group of people coming together to bring ministry.
The chair does not have the demographic information for the current team members or those being appointed organized. That is something that we could, the chair could seek in future conferences, but it's not something we have at this one. I know the steering committee that was formed 2 years ago and that's shaped into the current team did take that into consideration and reaching out to and engaging members, but wouldn't be able to provide that information at this time. So if the microphone on the podium did not pick up, the question was if the demographics of the current team or the proposed members could be shared regarding age, race, gender, those different questions, and that information is not gathered at this time for the team members. See no one else seeking the floor. The question is on the adoption of Resolution 1, which reads, which will not be read again. It's in the printed materials and on the slide. So the question now is on adopting Resolution 1. We'll take this vote by polling. Do that. I believe the Zoom poll is open for those online to vote yes in favor of adopting Resolution 1 or no opposed. And in person, we'll have the polling devices open soon. So please start voting. We'll give about a minute to cast votes. The 30-second window to close the polls can start. Okay, it appears there are 239 votes in favor and 16 votes opposed. There is a majority in favor and resolution 1 is adopted. So the Mission Center team, diversity team will be appointed later in the meeting. At this time, the chair would direct the conference to the Mission Center Financial Officer report. It can be found on pages 2 through 22 of your materials. The Mission Center Financial Officer has been assisted by the Assistant Mission Center Financial Officer in title, Jessica Montague. And so the chair would give great thanks to Jessica for all her efforts in preparing that report and carrying out these duties throughout the year. I would encourage you to look at the last year's report, this year's current to date report, and all of the supplementals in that packet. There's a lot of great information to review there. We'll be moving then to the 2 items that come from the report of the Mission Center Financial Officer. The first is on the adoption of the 2021 Financial Statement and Procedures Inspection Report. The chair refers the conference to pages 14, 15, and 16 for this report. The question is on the report at this time. Is there any discussion? See no hands raised and no one seeking the floor. Chair will proceed to the vote on the financial procedures and inspection report. I'm going to try this again by voting. If Just a generic slide to say yes or no on adopting the financial procedures inspection report. So the poll is open in Zoom. And it'll be just a moment for the slide in person to start. Okay, the 30 seconds to close the polls. There appear to be 233 votes in favor and 1 opposed. There is a majority, and the inspection report for 2021 is adopted. The next item of business is consideration of the 2023 Mission Center budget. Chair directs delegates to page 22 for the proposed budget. Before the motion is before the body, are there any questions? Not yet debate or motions, but are there any questions about considering the budget? All right, seeing no one seeking the floor for a question, then the motion is before 23. Referring to the standing rules, it is considered as a whole. A discussion and amendments are now open on the line items. Chair recognizes Dick Pennington. It's on the floor now, so you can ask a question now.
Mine's for an amendment.
Yep.
Okay. Brothers and sisters, I'm moving an amendment for the expenditures on a line 15 to increase the salaries by $18,000 and increase the income for the envelopes and contributions by that same amount. And so the total on the salaries would be up to 181,000, and the income on the envelopes would be up to 34,500. Now, do I give my rationale?
So the question before the body now is on amending the budget by increasing the income line 2 by $18,000 and the expense line 15 also by $18,000. The chair recognizes Dick Pennington for speaking in support of the amendments.
My rationale for requesting this increase is that our brother Dan is the Mission Center president. And if you look at the next page on 23, which has not been called up for your information, it tells that the Mission Center president is half-time. Well, it's almost half-time. He's listed at 19 hours. If you believe he's working 19 hours a week as our Mission Center president, I don't believe I'm that gullible. So I am suggesting that it be increased to 20 hours, which would be about a $3,000 increase in salary, which would then require that we pay him benefits. Dan and Abby have lost the income as foster parents because they adopted their foster child who lost his parents or his mother in an accident. And then they took on an additional expense by having a child in natural birth. So Dan and Abby have lots of additional expenses, but not lots of income increases. So by adopting this increase, we would be able to reduce Dan and Abby's expenditures by taking over whatever they may be doing with benefits expenses for them, and perhaps fill in a little bit of a gap for them with the loss of his foster childcare income. And as far as the income is concerned, on the envelopes, if 15 of us were to pay $100 additional in the year, that would be $15,000. So if 18 of us did it in a year, that would be $18,000. So it's really not that hard for us to really make up that difference if we want to. And as far as I'm concerned, we are being negligent if we allow Dan and Abby to be underpaid to do a job. And then I would suggest that for next year, our Mission Center president should be full-time rather than half-time. So my motion, let's have a half-time with benefits person this year and a full-time Mission Center president next year. That's my motion.
Thank you. Is there further debate on the amendment? The chair will seek to alternate between those for and against the amendment, if possible. Right now, there are a couple. So those of you who have your hand raised, if you're also able to make a green check or a red X, so the chair would know if you're for or against, that would help in alternating speeches. Don't know if you're able to do that at the same time. So chair will recognize Patricia Clapham.
I'm not saying whether I'm for or against, I'm just asking a question. How would you word that so that it actually goes where it was desired? Because just adding it into the budget means that it's just added into the budget, not that it's added into the budget for a particular person.
Yes, the conference doesn't designate how each line item is spent, so that would not be added into the amendment. This would just be changing the amounts of the budget. Okay. Chair would recognize Julie Bach.
I'm not really opposed, but I would like to change the proposed amendment. That we're voting first and only for this year. And that if they want to make the change to full-time, have that a separate amendment.
Yes, that is not, the current amendment is just for the change to the 2023 budget. The comments in the debate are not applying to the amendment. So the current amendment is just the change for the 2023 budget of increasing by $18,000.
Thank you.
Chair would recognize either Sue Budnick or Dee Neal.
I think that was an error, sorry.
Okay. Chair recognizes Talitha Pennington in person.
Okay, I guess I just need to have clarification as well, that Pat raised up. In the amendment, is it specified what it's to go for? In other words, does it say that it is to go towards salary and then it is to income is to come through the other stuff?
The amendment specifies it would go to salaries and benefits, but how that line item is used throughout the year depends on the specifics of payroll and employee changes. So as far as earmarking it for a particular person, that can't be stipulated in the amendment. It's just the line item. So it would only be changing the line item for salaries and benefits.
So it does go into that line.
Correct.
And then the income goes in the other line. Okay.
Correct. Chair recognizes Janine Wagner.
No, I thought you were saying it was time to go ahead and vote, so I clicked the green.
Okay, thank you. Chair recognizes Vicki Reynolds in person.
I just have a question. I don't recall the history of, we have 3 paid mission center staff, 2 full-time, 1 part-time. It always stunned me that you were part-time. How is it determined? How was it determined who would be full-time, who would be part-time based on job description, hours need? How is that determined?
Yeah, staffing levels have changed throughout the past several years. The last significant change was in the downsizing of 2015 when World Church positions were eliminated that were assigned to the Mission Center. So staffing adjustments were made at that time. There was another downsizing in 2018, and then which shifted the burden of all the remaining positions to the Mission Center. I think that was effective fully in 2020. In 2020, the pandemic caused some staffing changes at that time within that calendar year budget. So the line item allocated was not used in 2020. And similarly in 2021, the report approved would show that the full line item was not used due to staff reductions. So those decisions are made by the Mission Center President, Mission Center Financial Officer to fit within the approved budget from the conference. The proposed budget has been developed by the Mission Center officers with the proposed staffing that's in the narrative to continue what was essentially the same staffing as last year. So the operating budget supports 2.5 positions. Additionally, the Mission Center employs a full-time camping coordinator through the camping gathering various funds, not through the operating budget. Chair recognizes Charlene Lawton. Charlene Lawton had. Okay. Chair recognizes Rebecca Hensey in person.
I'm asking for clarification. Are we saying that when we increase by 18,000 in the budget, that we are hoping that that 18,000 would come from the envelopes?
That's what the amendment is. Yes, correct. Chair recognizes Catherine Williamson.
Yes, I am fully in support of this amendment. Dan, I think that we all know that you do much more than 19 hours worth of work per week, maybe a lot more on some weeks. My concern is how do we, and other people have mentioned this, how do we ensure that that money, if it is approved, that it goes to increase your salary versus across the board?
Again, the conference doesn't specify salary positions or salary amounts or benefits, so the conference can't guarantee that through the budget proposal. Certainly, the chair and staff are hearing the debate in the meeting and understand the intent of the resolution or the proposed amendment, but as far as the conference's ability to designate a very specific amount anywhere in the budget, that's not part of this process. So there's no guarantee, but certainly the chair recognizes the proposal being made. Chair recognizes Eleanor West.
I don't know why it showed, my name showed up. I don't know why it showed, my name showed up.
All right, I had a in favor or a check there. The chair recognizes Cheryl Seifert in person.
Just a question on that. The line items of salaries and benefits, if there was to be a separate line item such as 15A, to specify that, would that be something that conference could do?
If the conference specifically named this for the Mission Center president team, that I think could be permissible. However, again, any adjustments needed through the year, employees can change, so benefit packages can change, HR requirements. So I think it would be in order for the conference to change this, to have it as a specific separate line item versus an increase in an existing line item. But I don't think that change would give any guarantee again, because no matter how the line item is labeled, it's not going to guarantee to a person or specific outcome. So the chair doesn't see any further hands raised. There are a few check marks that I think were put up for people who thought they may have been voting. Chair, yeah. So if there are no one else seeking the floor, it doesn't appear there's any further debate. So the question before the body at this time is the amendment. We're voting on the amendment to increase line 2 envelope contributions by $18,000 and increase line 15 salaries and benefits by $18,000 as well. So the polls will open for the amendment. We're voting just on the amendment. Shall the amendment be adopted? Shall the proposed a change of $18,000 increase to line 2 and line 15? Vote now on the Zoom poll or with your voting device. While this vote is being taken, the chair would like to give some directions on the balloting for the Sanford Campground Board. That ballot has been sent to those who are registered with an email address and are attending the meeting as best we could from the in-person and online check-ins. The chair is aware that some people are attending the meeting with another person through Zoom. So we may only have the persons who signed in with their name as registered, meaning those other people would not have received the ballot if we didn't have them checked off as attending. So you can start checking your email now to find that ballot. And for those here in person who need to access Wi-Fi, is there a password they need? So the public Wi-Fi network at Blue Water, the password is community, the word community, all lowercase. So if you've got your phone, tablet, computer, someone around you, however, I do believe we have capacity to set up a laptop somewhere here. If somebody needs to vote on a laptop to get to your email to get that link. Again, if you registered with an email address, it should have gone to that. If we didn't have you on the checked-in list, then you wouldn't have gotten the ballot. So we'll start adding those for people who have checked in, but you haven't seen it yet. We'll be able to add your email address to get that. So those of you online, if you're with someone, we may not have captured you yet. You'll need to put that in the chats to Linda Stanbridge so we can start adding those additional folks. If you're in person and we didn't check you off for some reason or didn't have your email address when you registered, we'll need to get that written down so we can make sure you get sent the ballot. So you can keep voting as the meeting goes on. Hopefully we'll have enough bandwidth and time here for everyone to get in and do that in person, and those online can keep doing that. Again, it is your right to not vote at all if you don't want a ballot, or to take the ballot and then click abstain or vote between 1 and 5 votes. All right, voting seems to have slowed on the amendments, so ask the polls to be closed, and in person there'll be a 30-second window. Same online. Please cast your votes on the amendment. Here's our 200 votes in favor and 38 votes opposed to the amendment. There is a majority in favor of the amendment. The amendment is adopted. The proposed budget is now the question again before the assembly as amended. Is there any further discussion on the proposed budget as amended? The slide has not yet changed, but the lines 2 and 15 are increased by $18,000. The chair recognizes Vicki Sanford.
Some of us online are not receiving the poll that you just asked for a vote on.
Okay, the chair is not aware of how the poll shows up on the device.
It usually shows up on the screen per your screen like you're showing at the conference. But I just tried to vote, but there was no polling for online for us.
Were you able to see polls on previous votes?
Yes, all the previous ones I was, but this one was no.
Yeah, so I'm unclear what might have happened in that situation. Vicki, well, hopefully the next poll will be available to everyone. If you were seeing the previous ones, it did seem a substantial number of delegates did vote. So I think the result is valid. So we'll take the next poll and I'll ask for that if anybody's having difficulty seeing the poll. Thank you for bringing that issue to the attention of the chair. Is there any further debate on the amended proposed budget for 2023? See no one seeking the floor, proceed to the vote, which is now on the proposed budget as amended. So again, shall the 2023 proposed budget be adopted as amended? So that vote can come up now in person. We will launch the poll on Zoom. Okay, so the poll should be available now to those of you on Zoom. If anyone's having difficulty seeing it, please let the chair know. The chair does not have any options to change that, but it would be helpful to know if there's a significant issue with online polling. Okay, you're voting in person now on the proposed budget as amended for 2023. And again, if you're not seeing that Sanford election ballot yet in your email, contact Linda Stanbridge, or if in person, see Jessica to get added to have that sent. So as far as the internet capacity, we'll have to see if you have voted already and you're able to turn off your Wi-Fi connection, go in airplane mode, make sure you're not using the Blue Water service. That may help if you have a lot of people trying to connect in here. So if you've already voted or don't intend to vote, and you're using a device, please disconnect from the Blue Water internet so that everyone is able to get connected at some point. The chair would recognize Janice Winans. Comment or question?
No, I was just trying to vote.
Thank you. We are hearing some individuals who hadn't received it, but are then seeing it come into their email. So it may still be coming to some of you going through servers. Chair recognizes Joyce Primo seeking the floor.
Yeah, I didn't receive mine.
Sorry, there was an echo there, Joyce. We didn't catch your comment.
I did not receive. Receive an email.
Okay, thank you. Okay, another reminder is to check junk and spam folders. It is election related, and this time of year that may quickly go to your junk or spam folder. Okay, the polls will close on the consideration of the budget as amended. The chair would ask the board presidents for the campgrounds to be prepared to give their brief highlights following this item of business. Appear to be 231 votes in favor, 10 votes opposed. There is a majority The budget as amended is approved for 2023. The written reports from campground boards are available in the conference documents starting on page 25. At this time, brief highlights will be shared, and the chair would recognize Kelly Christian for the highlights of the Blue Water report. Following this will be the Sanford report and then Park of the Pines. Go ahead, Kelly.
Okay, in your packet should be a report that we have in there for you to read. I'm not going to bore you with reading. I do that to my students enough. I don't need to do that here. Just to give you a couple of things that may not be in there. There's always a great need for things to be done manually on the campground. Volunteers to rake leaves, pick up sticks, those kind of things are always needed, or just come around and clean. We have a resident manager here for doing lots of stuff, but it's a daunting task. And so if you are in the area, please consider contacting myself or Kurt, and we can always have you do some cleaning. We also need lots of repairs that we want to try and improve on. And it takes time, someone to do it, and or money. So we do have a couple of donation programs going on in that report. One of them is a wish list for recreation equipment. Another one is for some for the fundraiser gift cards. And if we have money, we can do those kind of things. We have several projects we're working at doing that we're trying to get forward. Redoing the waterfront stairs, getting new windows for our resident manager. We want to upgrade and replace some of the bathroom facilities. We have more normal, modern handicap toilets and so forth. Those all require resources and people to do them. So please think those in your mind. And we also are greatly appreciative of all your support in the past and look forward to it in the future.
Thank you. The chair would recognize. It's appeared Dana Therian is connected. Chair would recognize Roger Elkins. Roger, did you have comments to share on the Sanford report?
Roger Elkins here. No, I don't have comment on it. I had read Dana's and I thought she was going to give the report. And I don't have it here in front of me.
Okay, thank you. Then the chair would recognize Carla Parks for the Park of the Pines reports.
Thank you, Dan. The Park of the Pines report is in your packet, so I won't go through that. But I would like to highlight that this is the second year we have worked on a strategic plan, and that has been tremendously helpful. In 2021, we did our first brainstorming and created a strategic plan and identified all the activities that we were good at, the things we needed to improve, and we gave those to the committees to review and to identify priorities, things that needed to be addressed right away. They were given a priority of 1 and also identified a timeline for getting those things accomplished. One of the things they gave the executive committee was the development, and the finance committee was the development of finance plan. And that was very, very helpful in helping us keep focused in terms of planning our finances and planning our spending. And then being very clear on what we wanted to do going forward financially. And we cleared off a $32,000 debt. So we have maintained really good financial stability. And in this year, 2022, for the executive committee, part of that was to develop a fundraising and marketing plan. So we have put that into effect, and I'm hoping next year to give a good report on that. We did, as part of that, implement our 100 People Who Care campaign again, which we started before the pandemic. And the purpose of that is to ask 100 people to donate $100 to the Park Endowment Fund, and that would create an additional $10,000 in that fund, which is kept in a separate AIP account. And we did raise just over $7,000 through that campaign. It will be an annual campaign. And the goal of that then is, as congregations age or close, that the contributions that those congregations donated to the park on an annual basis will be replaced with funds from the endowment. So as we grow that endowment fund, more is able to be given to the park for operating expenses and to keep the park financially stable and viable. So we will continue with the strategic plan, and the committees as well helps to keep them focused, keep them reporting to the board and making progress. Dan, should I talk about the resolution? Okay, so we're real tickled about that and look forward to another good year. Great board. Good thank yous go out to Bill Johnston, our resident manager, and his wife Winnie, who are just doing a tremendous job. Yes, thank you. They are really terrific to work with, as well as all of the members of the board who are very active and participating. So thank you, everybody, for your support.
Title Park of the Pines Dining Hall Loan Approval. This resolution is submitted by the Park of the Pines Board of Directors. Before the resolution is brought for debate, are there any questions about the content of the resolution? Just questions at this time. See no one asking a question then. The resolution is before the body at this time, which reads, resolved that the Mission Center Conference grants approval for the Park of the Pines Board of Directors to borrow up to $750,000 from the Community of Christ Houses of Worship Revolving Loan Fund to replace the existing dining hall, with the project to include demolition of the existing dining hall, architectural drawings and permits, site development and infrastructure improvements, and construction of a new dining hall. The chair would recognize.
Thank you again, Dan. As I mentioned before, we have a strategic plan, and the Futures Committee is tasked with looking to the future and to continue the growth of the park. One of those things is the Park of the Pines dining hall and kitchen. For many years, we've talked about replacing that, and it does need to be totally torn down and replaced. And for many years, funds have been donated specifically for a new dining hall and kitchen. And we have about $300,000 for that project. We have interviewed 2 architects and selected one, and both of them on individual meetings indicated it probably will be around $750,000 to demolish it and rebuild it on the same footprint that it is now. It's too small for our needs and it's old. So we are asking for approval to borrow up to that $750,000 with the understanding that we probably will not have to, because we already have about 300,000 saved. But as you know, things cannot be carved in stone in these days. And so we, rather than coming back several times, thought we would ask for approval for what we think it will be. And if we don't have to borrow that or don't have to borrow that much, then we won't. And our CFO, Kathy Hopkins, is very anti-borrowing. So we'll be doing fundraising as well.
Oh, just that, I think that was the end of your speech, correct?
What?
End of your speech?
I'm sorry.
Just before we entertain any questions, that was the end of the, okay. Okay, debate will continue. So the chair will seek those, a speech against resolution 2. Speech against. Chair recognizes Dick Bennington.
Carla, if it's already known to be too small,
Yeah.
then the footprint needs to be bigger. So do you have any idea how much bigger and how much additional cost that might be to make it an adequate footprint to have the forward vision?
Right. It's this amount.
Okay, so the question was, what would the cost be to make the larger footprint, if I understood that correctly? Okay, and Carla can respond.
Well, and it's this amount here is the total amount that we understand. I can't tell you what it would be now, and we haven't got the preliminary drawings yet. We do have the architect and we do have a down payment to him for the preliminary drawings to come back to the board of directors. We are asking for a seating capacity of 100 people. With our plan is not to have the seating in terms of dining area, but of course, once you take that away, you can put more chairs and be able to use it for other functions as well. If you go over 100 people, it's our understanding, then you're starting to add a lot of more costs and a lot more licenses and things like that. So we want to stay within that. We think that'll work for us.
Is there any further debate? Those online, if you're seeking the floor, please use the raise hand. The chair recognizes Josie Dalton.
So I'm 110% for it because I've cooked at all of the reunion campgrounds. And Park of the Pines is beyond a graceful aging old lady. Her hips are broken. So we need to do it. But I have a question regarding the Houses of Worship revolving loan fund. So it's not technically a church. Is there any language in there that's going to harm us? So if we vote, I don't want it to be for nothing. I want to make sure that it's within the conditions. Has this already been presented and cleared that the money could possibly come from the fund just because it's being technically listed as a dining hall? Or would it have to be listed as a multi-purpose facility in order for that to, I just want to make sure we're doing everything right. Because a lot of times we have line items and then they're not necessarily followed to the rules and conditions of the item. I just want to make sure we're in the clear so we're not wasting our time because they really, really, really need this.
All right, the chair would recognize Dina DeVormer just to confirm, but the label of Houses of Worship Revolving Loan Fund is the title for any fund loan within the church, congregation, or campground, includes any approved loan project. Is that correct, Dina?
That would be correct. That's just the name of it. It does not mean that it has to be used for worship, but we know that a lot of worship happens in our dining hall. So we could, but it is not a requirement that it be a church facility, church building.
Thank you. And yes, and this is just the approval for the loan. So there would be many specifics that the board and bishopric and mission center officers would have to work out on a loan, but thank you for the question. There are no hands online, so the chair would recognize Cheryl Seifert in person.
Just a question for you, Carla. There are, I don't remember exactly how many, but I know there's a few rooms that are, can you hear me? I wasn't by the mic, so I just wanted to make sure so everybody can hear. I know there's rooms above the dining hall now that we've not been able to use for years.
Right.
Is that part of the plan going forward to replace those rooms? Or are those just like permanently off the table?
Okay, if that didn't come through online, the question is about the rooms above the current dining hall. Would those be replaced or how would that be addressed with a new dining hall?
They will be permanently erased. They will not be any longer, no rooms over the dining hall at all anymore. What happened was we stopped using them several years ago. And when the fire inspector came back the following year, said, we can't start using them again. So they're not usable. They're really unsafe at this point. And the stairs going up to them are very unsafe and blocked off. So we will not have those rooms. We did add 2 Amish cabins this year in the upper terrace for additional housing. So that is one of the things that is on the strategic plan, is to continue to look at housing, but we haven't used those rooms for 10 years at least.
Thank you. The chair. So there is nothing in the plan to have bedrooms in the new dining hall. The chair recognizes Deborah Brew.
What is the dining room seating capacity now?
I believe it's around 64 to 70.
Okay. Chair recalls 66, so I think, yeah, that's the right ballpark there. Right. The chair recognizes Ed Clapham.
What's the expected method of repayment, or what's the planned method of repayment for this loan?
Of course, depending on how much we have to borrow, we are planning on fundraising, and it will be included in the budget once we get approval and once we have a better idea of the amount we'll need to repay, but definitely fundraising.
It appears there are no other persons seeking the floor for questions. Yes, chair recognizes Chad Ormsby.
The question is about the terms of the loan that has to be done. What is the repayment term, and what surrounds that $750,000?
Right, in the additional information, what's provided are structured to be repaid in 15 years with an interest rate determined annually by the presiding bishopric. Local jurisdictions are responsible for paying 1/3 of the total project. So I'm going to recognize Dina. If there's anything additional to add to that, or does that address the question? So. Are there any other debate or questions on resolution 2? Yeah, just before everybody else. Chair recognizes Deborah Davis.
Deborah Davis. I submitted some questions last night after
meeting online, and I think it's pertinent to be able to share some of this. And one of the questions that I had asked was, is there a written proposal or quote yet? And the answer was no, there's no quote and there's no proposal for the project. The other was, are we using any other previous plans for the property usage development that had been established many years ago? And the answer was no, that they're going to start with fresh plans. There was not a proposal for repayment because obviously we don't know how much money they're going to get. And so the question that I have, and then I'd like to speak to the actual proposal, or I should say your response was that it would need to be determined, the amount would need to be determined of the project before any kind of payment can be proposed into what we would have to fundraise for. So I know that the board is asking for full approval for the full amount, but yet we don't even have any proposals to know what that full amount is. So those were the questions that I had asked last evening, and then I would speak to the actual proposal itself when you're ready for that.
Several things. We don't actually have any other plans. I know in the past it's been said we had plans, but as we looked into that, they weren't actual preliminary architectural drawing plans. They were just sort of sketched out plans. That's not something we can base any estimate on. So that's why we're starting with an architect. And the first thing we need from the architect is the preliminary plans that need to go before the board to say, yep, we got the idea right. There are things we want in the new kitchen and dining room that we don't have yet because we need the plans. So it's kind of the chicken and egg, and I certainly, understand the concerns. We'd like to get the plans. We'd like, certain things like a walk-in freezer and a walk-in refrigerator, so we don't have to keep so many independent individual refrigerators and freezers that break down that need to be replaced in the kitchen, and just really bring it up to date. So, and I do understand there are some funds from the sale of campgrounds that we may also ask for approval once we get more information about specific costs. So.
No one online. Chair recognizes Troy Piper.
My concern with this is that there seems like there's not a lot of information. There's not a lot of details. There's not a lot of plans. They're asking for $750,000 loan and there's no details. It's all kind of preliminary thoughts and preliminary. I have a problem with giving them, I don't have a problem with giving them the loan. I have a problem with where they're at in their planning process. I would be a lot more comfortable with this if there were at least some architectural drawings, and if there was some more details into just what they're asking for and how much they're asking for and how they're going to repay this.
Chair recognizes Kelly Christian.
Kelly Christian, East Side Congregation. Also, I'd like to speak to this on behalf of a board president knowledge. I know we're asking for information on this, but when our boards come together, we offer prayer. We faithfully consider the best way to move forward on our projects that we have. And I know we'd like to have all the things ironed out, but I have from memory, when we helped do the tabernacle build here, when we fixed our drain field, a lot of times plans don't come out until you get the approval to get the money to get the plans. Our board at the park has faithfully come together with a plan. They've recognized this problem for years. I've sat on the combined executive committee for many years, and this has come up over and over. They've got a plan to move forward, and they're at a point where if we don't give money, they cannot move forward. And I think as a body, we need to trust their prayerful consideration, trust the bishopric oversight, trust our mission center to support them in their endeavor, even though we may not know all the little details and stuff. It's going to happen. They need this, like we needed this tabernacle, like Sanford needs their bathroom, and we trust the boards to the best that they can under the Holy Spirit's guidance and with our financial support. So I'm in favor of the loan.
The chair recognizes Kathy Gaddy online.
Okay, so sorry, I had to unmute. I'm a numbers person, if people know who I am. And my consideration is the payback. If I understand the terms that I thought I read in the paperwork last night, the money that you borrow from this, I'll call it worship fund, is to be paid back in 15 years. Am I correct? Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, so if you take $450,000, because if we have 300,000 available in what has been raised already against the 750, you divide it by 180 months, that's 15 years. You have a principal payback. Oops, so sorry. That didn't work. Push the wrong button. You have a principal payback of $2,500 a month. That is not a fundraising amount. We have to have a plan in place as to where that money is going to come from the budget. That's going to have to be income or something every month to cover that obligation. And that's not even including interest. So at this point in time, I think they do need to go forward with a preliminary drawings. They need to know dollars and cents and what the realistic amounts would be. But also in that plan needs to be a consideration of how to meet that obligation. It can't be just placed in faith. It has to be placed in numbers. That's just my take. But I know it's needed very desperately. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Sam Bellinger.
Sam Bellinger, East Lansing congregation. I have a problem. It is because there's not really a good plan, but also when you listen to Dina, we as the 5 mission centers, we still have $1.5 million due to Bridge of Hope. And if they don't meet that, they're going to take that from our pools, our investment pools. And as a church, I look at the number of churches that have closed and the number of diminishing members and the changing of our faith. How can we move to create or build when we have no idea where we are financially? I mean, our finances are not that good. And it may be $750,000 today, but looking at the rising costs of everything out there, all of those costs could double by the time this project goes into effect. I mean, I look at Freon that was $1 a pound is over $25 a pound now, just for the refrigeration. And nothing is getting cheaper. How can we move? I know it's a leap in faith, but I think there needs to be a better plan. And I mean, it sounds like they've already spent money on the architecture for a down payment. That, I mean, if this doesn't go forward, then that's all lost. I mean, and I look at how do we pay $4,000 or $5,000 a month for the next 15 years or whatever. I mean, and where is that going to come from if all of the baby boomers are gone by then? Thank you.
Chair would recognize Deborah Brew online.
I'll point out that Park of the Pines has shown a record of responsibility. Their budget is in the black. This has been an issue for years. I think that now is the time to take action before the building falls down or is condemned. Do I trust the leadership of Park of the Pines? Yes, I do.
Thank you, Deborah. Chair recognize Lisa Meyer.
Lisa Meyer, Spiral Congregation. I just had a question to start with. You were able to raise $300,000. Can you tell us the amount of time that was raised in? Do you know?
No, I don't. It's been in an AIP account, so it's also
Accruing interest.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I
For
was
those
curious
online,
about.
The question, what was the time period for raising the $300,000? And it's been a significant time period, not identifiable.
Okay, I was gonna say that's impressive to me that you've raised $300,000 for it. But I was hoping if that had taken place in a period of time, that would mean that this would be more easily repayable, that would be a good thing. I am in favor of it. I went to Park of the Pines when I was a child, and I don't think that building's changed not one bit since I was there when I was 10. So I'm just gonna say the gray in my hair shows that it needs some updating maybe.
The chair recognizes Morgan Gilbert.
So I'm just wondering the building, like who's building it? Because I know Blue Water, the tabernacle was built mainly by volunteers. And so I'm sure that cut down on expenses a lot. Is this going to be contracted out, or are there volunteers who can help lower the costs?
There are no plans yet for a contractor or volunteer work. At this point, it's only thing selected has been an architect to begin the drawings. So none of that has been determined. Chair recognizes Dave Primo in person.
In my second life, I was a construction manager, managed the building of projects up to $200 million. So I want to address some of the concerns about not having a plan and looking for the money. If we approve the $750,000, then if the board is smart, they make that their budget. And if the architect comes in above that, they say to the architect, you need to pare it down. That's what we can afford. That's the answer to that question. The second thing is the whole selection and management process is significant. And in terms of the contractors selected, getting fair bids, all of that process. And having had experience with all that, it is a process. And if you get people you can trust to help you through that process, that can help control expenses and in terms of the kind of extras contractors are always after, those kinds of issues. So approving the money now without a plan, I don't see as a major problem. The question is it something in our minds, is there a cost benefit to having this facility? Is the facility itself providing a ministry that is worthy of sticking our necks out, I guess, I would say. But in terms of the issues with architects, if you know how much money you're going to spend, then that's what you design for.
Thank you.
Yes, chair recognizes Deborah Davis.
The Park of the Pines has been in our family for well over 60 some years. And the park is dear to me. There's no question that we need a new dining hall. With that said, some of the concerns that have been expressed already, lack of plans, the lack of, other than having hired an architect. But in this economic situation that our country is finding itself in, with the interest rates going up another 75 points, not knowing if even some of our smaller congregations can keep their doors open, it's really difficult for me to say, let's approve this loan and let's improve the park. The park, there's always room for improvement, no matter where we go. But taking out amount of money of 750,000, more of $250,000, when we don't know where the funds are coming from, where we don't know where the economic situation in our country and where it's headed. I think as good stewards, we really need to consider all these factors. Moving ahead, making plans are wonderful, but until we have answers to some of these questions, I don't think it's good stewardship to get ourselves into debt the way we will be doing that and not have an answer to where the income will come from. I am sure that moving forward with more information, we can make a better decision, but I stand opposed at this time.
Chair recognizes James Baird online.
Brother Dan, I moved the previous question.
All right, there's a motion for previous question. Is there a second? There is a second. A motion for previous question, it would close debate. So at this time, the body will vote on previous question, which would close debate. The polling should be open on Zoom and the polling will start in person in just a moment. You're voting yes to close debate, no to continue debate. This does require a 2/3 vote to close debate. Okay, the polls will close in 30 seconds. While the polls are closing, are there any additional needs in person for ballots in the Sanford Campground election? Anyone who has not yet been able to access the ballot, you could talk to Jessica. Up to 5. So if anyone in person is still not able to access the ballot online, go talk to Jessica. If we can't make it work, we can spoil that ballot and give you a paper one to vote with. Those online as well, we've been recording all the contacts we've gotten through the chats or to Linda. So anyone else online who has not received the ballot, please get those messages sent. There are 199 in favor and 51 opposed to previous question. There are 2/3 in favor of ordering previous question and closing debate. Proceed now to the vote on resolution 2, Park of the Pines Dining Hall loan approval. So voting will now open on resolution 2. There were no amendments. Voting is on resolution 2 as printed in red. You can vote in person with your device, online through the Zoom poll. Voting appears to slow, so the polls can close in 30 seconds. Voting on resolution 2 as printed. There appear to be 168 votes in favor, 76 votes opposed. There is a majority. Resolution 2 is approved. Authorization is given to the Park of the Pines Board to borrow up to $750,000 from the House of Worship Revolving Loan Fund for the proposed project. Those steps will certainly continue with the board and officers involved. This is the authorization that has been approved. The next category of business is reports of committees and teams. These printed reports can be found on pages 31 and 33. There were some video reports prepared to share, but given the time in the meeting, we're going to postpone those till later in the afternoon. So at this time, we'll move forward with our next item, which is concluding the elections. So the chair would ask again, are there any requests for ballots or voting assistance in person? Looks like we have a couple, so we'll continue to work on that. We'll come back to the finalizing of the board elections. But again, if you have any questions remaining, please get those done online. Just before we get to the special orders, the chair did read about the previous minutes conference, but failed to nominate the same committee members to serve for the minutes review committee for this conference. So the chair would ask Dina DeVormer, Sandy Ecker, and Dave Caceres to be approved as the minutes review committee for the 2022 conference. Are there any objections? Hearing none. Dina DeVormer, Sandy Ecker, and Dave Caceres are approved as the minutes review committee for the 2022 fall conference. The next items of business are sustaining Mission Center officers. And those letters are presented on page 38 for the Mission Center president and financial officer, recommended by the First Presidency, and on page 39 for the Mission Center invitation support minister, recommended by the president of SEVITY. The chair will now be turned over to Apostle Locke Mackay to handle these sustaining votes.
Thank you, Dan. The Zoom polling seems to be working very well online, so I'd like to change it up and use Zoom polling for the sustaining vote online. That works. Is that an option?
Hey, Locke, I was not listening because I was adding a ballot. Can you repeat what your question was?
So since the Zoom polling is working so well online, I'd like to change it up and use Zoom polling for the sustaining vote. Is that an option?
It's not because we have like at least almost half of our people in person, but we can use the Bluetooth devices that we have here instead of.
Let me back up. For the online folks, could we use Zoom polling, but then use the polling devices in the room?
Yes, we can.
So if we could get ready to launch the Zoom poll in just a minute. And then I'll need somebody in the room to tell me the in-room polling device results, since I can't see those.
Okay, Ben and I will navigate that. I'll need just a minute to see if I can set up a poll in Zoom.
Sorry about that. I'll go ahead and begin in the meantime. The First Presidency has recommended that the conference sustain the appointment of Dan Nowicki to serve as the Mission Center President and Jessica Montague to serve as Mission Center Financial Officer. The President of 70 for the quorum, including Michigan, has recommended that Linda Stambridge serve as Mission Center Invitation Support Minister. If there is no objection, all three of the recommendations will be considered together with one vote taken. Without objection, the question before the conference is on sustaining Dan Nowicki as Mission Center President, Jessica Montague as Financial Officer, and Linda Stambridge as Mission Center Invitation Support Minister. Are there any questions or are there any discussion? And if there are those online seeking the floor, I'll need help seeing those. Hearing or seeing none, once we have the Zoom poll ready to go, we will move to vote. You'll be voting yes to sustain the recommended appointments. If you're opposed, you'll be voting no. And I'll wait for Ben and Linda to tell me when we're ready to launch. There it is.
Are you good too, Ben? Okay, everybody should have the ability to vote.
Looks like voting is slowing. If we could give it 30 seconds to close. And do we have the in-room poll results, polling device results yet?
We do. Yep, we have 3 seconds on the Bluetooth here. Bluetooth 94-1 in person.
Great. And 148 of 148 on the Zoom poll. So there is a majority in favor. The appointment of Dan Nowicki as Mission Center President, Jessica Montague as Mission Center Financial Officer, and Linda Stambridge as Mission Center Invitation Support Minister are sustained. Thank you. And now return the chair to Dan Nowicki.
Looks like I'm Dan for the day. There's gonna be some changes. This man thinks he's allowed bathroom breaks. There's a question in the chat, and while Dan's coming back up, the question was asked, what does the Mission Center Invitation Support Minister do? And I'll just draw your attention to your packet if you have it in there. There is a report from the MCISM that talks a little bit about what I did in this role this year. And we'll have some videos later that we had hoped to share this morning, but we're having such good discussion, we didn't have time for that. But largely I work with congregations and new expressions. So sort of church planting, working on these new visions of what it's like to be church in 2022. So you'll see some cool things in the video and in the packet as well. And I know that many of you have worked with me on communications, Zoom, Facebook, all of those fun things that we have to deal with to do church. So those things kind of summarize a lot of what my time is used for. But if you look in the packet, you'll kind of get an idea of what we did this year. And I'd be happy to answer any specific questions a little bit later. So thank you for that question.
The next item of business is the sustaining of staff and leaders who will serve on the Mission Center Council. Community of Christ bylaws call for each mission center to establish a mission center council, a standing body whose primary purpose is to advise mission center officers and staff on matters affecting the core functions of the mission center. A list of persons who have agreed to serve on the council and in other leadership roles in 2023 is found on page 40. Additionally to what's printed, Joey Kernstock has agreed to serve in the council role, visiting Bay City, Saginaw, Burt, and Sanford congregations. And Noel Gafka has agreed to serve on the council, visiting Farwell, Big Rapids, Greenville, and Muskegon. So those two additions can be penciled in. We do still have two groups to be determined on the council. The chair recommends sustaining the individuals listed and just named. The question is on the sustaining of the members of the Mission Center Council for 2023. Are there any questions or discussion? Chair recognizes.
I have an old copy, but the ones from Battle Creek on down to Ann Arbor, could you give me those folks' names, please?
Yes, so.
I'm sorry, it might be an old copy.
Yep, from the prep sessions, there's still to be determined for the Battle Creek group. The next group for Highland Park, Lake Orion, Troy Oaks, and Waterford is Zilphia Martin IV. Still to be determined on Croswell group, and the last group, Ann Arbor, Detroit, Hope, Riverview, and Plymouth, John Jones. There is no further questions or debate. Questions on sustaining those individuals named and listed. Is there any objection to abstaining the list of council members? See no objection. Without objection, those listed are sustained. Thank you deeply to those who have served this past year and those who have agreed to serve in the coming year. I suppose the chair should ask if the recommendations were sustained or if I'm to leave. No, okay. Thank you for your support as well for the chair and for the officers. We deeply appreciate all of the support, kind messages, and especially prayers throughout the year and managing the very complex needs of a faith community. The next item of business is consideration of calls to World Church Minister Priesthood offices. The chair refers you to pages 41 through 44 for the candidate statements. At this time, the chair recognizes Apostle Lach Mackay to share a reflection on all of the calls listed.
We have been blessed this year with an abundance of World Church Minister calls in the Michigan Mission Center. It was my privilege to share these calls individually with the Council of 12 Apostles. They were unanimously supportive, and they have been approved by the First Presidency. And I can share that the Spirit moved on me in powerful ways, affirming each of these calls. It has been a privilege to be engaged in the discernment process with these folks, spending considerable time. And without question, for me, I share my testimony that the Spirit is moving in the lives of these people and that these calls are appropriate.
The chair would recognize Sarah Allen. We talked about this. If Sarah's here to make a motion to approve the 70 calls. Is there a second? There is, thank you. The calls to Karen Smith and Ruth Eaton to the office of 70 are before the conference. At this time, the chair would recognize Ruth Eaton. There we go. Recognize Ruth Eaton to speak to the call.
So I'm Ruth Eaton, in case you don't know me. I'm born and raised from Boyne City. I've been a member of the church ever since I was old enough to get baptized at the age of 8. There's never been a time in my life where I'm more excited about the direction of the church. I'm humbled by the opportunity to be able to be serving in this new role, in this new journey, and I look forward to it. I'm extremely excited.
Thank you, Ruthie. The chair would recognize Karen Smith to speak to the call.
Hi, I'm Karen. There we go. I had a little trouble with the unmuting for a minute there. As you know, I've been pastor in Ludington for many years. And how can I describe the spirit of trust that has blessed my heart in the weeks and months after the closure of our Ludington congregation? In the beginning of this journey, I grieved over the loss of the church home. Where would I be able to express my ministry? How would I be able to minister? Oh, me of little faith. As I surfed the web some time ago, I came upon an image of Jesus extending his hand in invitation. Light from the distant horizon reflects from his open hand as though he holds light itself and offers it as a gift. His eyes gaze directly into the viewer's heart, and the caption reads, "I have a plan for you. Do you trust me?" The image has become very real to me, and every time the sorrow builds, this image comes to mind, and I am confronted and assured of God's continued involvement in our lives and ministry. Church is about reaching out to the community and loving ministry. Church is about sharing the love of God with those who are brokenhearted, people who have been dismissed, condemned, forgotten by society. Church is about caring for people who have lost hope. And sometimes a church building gets in the way of real ministry. Do you trust me? I've written my response to Christ's question as a verse to a familiar hymn, an affirmation that I can sing to myself as a prayer whenever I need guidance and encouragement. However, I will not try to sing it to you because you wouldn't like me anymore. I am not a singer, but I can read the words for you. I think you'll guess the tune. I trust you, Lord, and I take your hand to walk with you into the promised land. Help me to be as all you'd have me be, the blessing of love and peace in your world. I knew God was up to something long before Locke's and John White's video visit informing me of my call to 70. Looking back over the last few years, I recognize God's guiding hand preparing me for this moment. It is with joy and thanksgiving that I answer the call. Yes, I trust you, Lord. Lead the way.
Thank you, Karen. The question is on the approval of the calls for Karen Smith and Ruth Eaton to the office of 70. I think what we'll actually do is, if there's no objection, we'll take one poll on all 9 of the calls, so we don't have as much time voting separately. So if there's no objection to combining the motion into one, we'll proceed with the other calls first. Appears there's no objection. So we'll continue with the calls. At this time, the chair would recognize Talitha Pennington to move the calls for high priest on behalf of the high priest group.
It's my privilege to move that we accept the calls to high priest for 5 people in our mission center. Lisa Meyer, Linda Stanbridge, Troy Piper, Carla Parks, and who am I forgetting? Dorothy. Oh, so sorry. Dorothy Summer.
Okay, thank you. So the calls to high priest are also before the conference now, and the chair would start by recognizing Lisa Meyer to speak in response to the call.
All right, we're just gonna spin this because I'd like to actually speak to you. First of all, I want to address the elephant in the room, and I want to thank all of you for your condolences regarding my stepfather, Jim Danielson, who passed away on Tuesday. It's been a rough week. So I appreciate all of you and all of your thoughts and prayers. But as I stand up here accepting my call to the office of high priest, I'm thinking about my mission as a minister of vision. And in that, I'd like to share with you my vision for the community of Christ. My vision for our community is that we draw our circles wide, wider than we've ever thought about before, wide enough to include every person that we meet, and every person, whether or not they look like us, whether or not they have a family like us, whether or not they have a particular last name or a particular space or a particular color. Our circle, we're called to be Christ followers, and Christ drew the circles wider than anyone in his community had ever seen before. As a minister of vision, I see our church making change in our world, in our communities, our local communities, our broader communities, our states, our countries, our world. I see our call to make changes in the space that we see, to be the people in the world that are making the effort to reach out and form one community. I have to say that God is moving in my life in ways that I did not anticipate sometimes. In our congregation at Spiral, we are really trying to do that. We have brought in over 200 new people into our building over the past year, some for services, some for events, some for different kinds of things that we've done. And they're often people who never thought they would be welcome in a church community. And that has been an amazing experience and a very, very humbling experience. And I would like to continue to provide and assist in that vision throughout the church. My favorite scripture since I was a very young child is Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord. They are plans for good and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope. And that's where I'm placing my hope today in this call, is that as a church, we're able to create the vision Christ had for the world. Thank you.
So the chair would recognize Carla Parks.
Hello again. I too would like to thank everybody for their love, concern, and support. I was born and raised in Ann Arbor, and that's where the beginnings of my support came, through the RLDS Church and all the wonderful people that attended every Sunday and even every Wednesday with us. Created and formed my early years, my parents, and the people, some still with us and some not, but so many people who helped our family and us children grow in the faith. I currently live in Gaylord, which is our Parks family home where my dad was born and raised. So I'm the fifth family in community of Christ. And as Lisa was saying, the ministry very early with my dad, who, when we would go to him and say, hey, Dad, let's do, or let's go, he'd say, okay, how are we going to do that? What shall we do? And the whole world was open to us without any boundary or just we can do experience with quality improvement and quality control in the healthcare system. So a life of service, without me knowing it, God was pushing and opening doors and allowing me to grow and to hopefully provide that support to your congregations, to each of you, to help us all move forward to a vision that we don't even comprehend yet, but that has no boundaries. And we value the worth of all people. And I am so grateful to be part of this. So thank you. I am delighted and humbled to accept the call to high priest.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Troy Piper to speak. You know, we kind of have to choose between the audience here or online. So I don't know if you want to try to do sideways or not, but if you turn that way, they can't see you. If you look this way, these folks won't see you. So.
I mean, I guess it really doesn't matter. You're not supposed to turn your back to anybody, but I mean, that's public speaking 101, but I'd like to, first of all, I'd like to thank everybody who has been instrumental in helping me to get to where I'm at, and been spiritual guides and fathers and just kind of support to help me to grow and develop. As a minister of vision, and I've thought a lot about this since my conversation with Dan and Locke, is that we have to reinvent ourselves. We have to reinvent church, and we have to reinvent how we do church. And what we've done since the beginning isn't working for us today. We're not reaching the lives that need to be reached. We're not touching the people that need to be touched. And in order to change that, in order to correct that problem, we have to reinvent ourselves. So my vision is to be the standard bearer for that reinvention, to find ways to reach out to people that, as Lisa said, never felt they had a place, never felt they belonged, and to show them that they do belong and that they do have a home. Thank you for your support, and I ask for your continued support.
Thank you, Troy. The chair recognizes Dorothy Summer to speak to the call.
So I'm gonna try to do this sideways. I have done theater in high school and some as an adult, and I don't want to turn my back to anyone. If you knew me as a child, little Dorothy Dalton was kind of quiet. I was a bit shy. I've grown a lot since then, but I'm still kind of a person of few words. I'm not very good at saying profound things. I can only say ditto to what my fellow high priest ordinands have said. I agree with all of that. I believe in taking action. I believe that we need to just jump in with both feet and just say, hey, we need to find a way to make the church for everyone, to make everyone feel included, to make everyone feel that our worship speaks to them. I also want to thank everyone that is in my family that has taught me so many things. All the people in my congregations that I work with on the council and in my home congregations that have taught me so much. And I humbly accept this call. Thank you.
Thank you, Dorothy. The chair recognizes Linda Stanbridge to speak to the call.
Good morning. It's really an honor to be standing here in front of all of you in consideration of this call. I got a text from Dan one Sunday afternoon that said, "Hey, do you have time to meet with Locke and I tomorrow?" And I thought, not if I'm in trouble. Not on a Monday. Not if that's what you want. That's how surprised I was to receive this call. I thought, oh man, my big mouth got me in trouble or something. The idea that I would be called to this office was just so far out of my consideration. And a lot of that is because I have been in these meetings. I've been in these fall conferences and watched many of you be called to these World Church minister offices. And I've seen the amazing work that many of you do. And I had not come to the point of considering myself in that type of a role. I've had some time over the last few months to talk to many people who serve in the office of high priest and to know a little bit more about what that office does. And it has been really exciting to see how that interacts and intersects with the gifts that God has given me and that I see are just beginning to develop and grow and change in me. I came to Community of Christ in my teens from an evangelical tradition. And so in a lot of ways, you guys raised me theologically and spiritually. And so I'm just really grateful to each of you who have walked with me on this journey and who continue to walk with me and support me. So thank you for this opportunity to serve you in that way.
Thank you, Linda. This time, the chair would recognize Carol Walden to add a motion for approval of the calls to high priest and evangelist.
At this time, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. At this time, I would like to offer the office of evangelist to Pam Luce and William Purcell and welcome them to the order.
Thank you, Carol. The calls for a high priest and evangelist are also before the conference at this time, and the chair will recognize Pam Luce to speak to the call.
I had some thoughts prepared and arrived at the grounds and just was overwhelmed with the spirit of this place again. This is home for me. My mom died when I was very little. When my dad remarried, he married Sharon Lovett from Croswell over here. And her mom, Grandma, to me for many, many years, would have me come up for several weeks every summer. Now, I want to side note, I was born Catholic and baptized Catholic originally, but here I was spending summers and every other Sunday coming to the RLDS church and coming to camp here. And I got to stay for all three reunions. So Flint District, Port Huron District, and Detroit State. Got to know everybody in a way. If you saw me in the old dining hall there as you came through the line, I know, Dorothy, you said you were a shy kid. I was the shyest kid ever here at Blue Water. And so I would stay with Grandma most often in the kitchen, except she'd send me across the little buildings over there for our lessons, for our church school experience. And boy, did I learn. I just loved church history. I loved everything about it. I was just too shy to really participate or feel okay about coming to youth camps. But every summer, well, Grandma's husband died soon after she came into our family. And when she remarried, she married George Booth, the evangelist from Detroit State. Oh, I love seeing the heads nodding. Oh, I remember. And so I stayed with them in George's little cottage right across Country Farm Lane here. And so for all reunions, he would be over there in the cottage, and in that front screen porch is where he would give the patriarchal blessings. And then grandma afterwards, of course, they recorded them on little cassette tape recorders. And she would late at night be on a manual typewriter. My room was just behind that screen porch, and I could hear her typing up the blessings on that special paper so that people would have them to take home with them. And I just remember all the times and the many other ways that he ministered there. Over the years, there were so many people, Ron and June Freeman. You know, what an example they were to me early on, because I grew up in the Lansing area, and they were from Owasso. And their outreach right from the start with Gala in Michigan, but also in other places across the country for retreats. And I would sit and listen to them and hear their heart, how they knew that this was a church that was meant for everyone. And they wanted it to be a welcoming place for everyone. And they put that in my heart from the early years. Now, in my professional life, I've had the opportunity to work quite a lot with people who are vulnerable in our communities, those who are marginalized, and some of those who are of the dominant culture and strong many times, but of course, life happens and they become vulnerable or they need extra support and extra care. So I've had that in my professional life, in my personal life, and in my faith community all these years. I didn't know or think or imagine that it would lead to a call to evangelist. But when I looked back after I got that call from Dan and from Locke, and yeah, Linda, I too thought, oh my gosh, what have I done? I stepped out of line somewhere. So surprised to hear them speak the words and some beautiful affirming statements from each of them. And right away, all these evangelists, and I've just touched on a couple, but I realized that there were evangelists placed in my life every step of the way. Right up to today, with many of you here in this room, and other priesthood members as well. So many people are here in this room who have mentored me, who have comforted me, who have shown me what God's grace really is. All that I want to do in this call, because I'm not sure I have the vision, especially in this changing landscape of our faith community. I don't know where it will lead, but I do know that I want people to feel as at home as I felt here as a child, and as I feel now coming back to the grounds. Just a big hug, a welcome. You are known. I know you by your name. I've placed things in your life for your blessing, that you can be the fullness of who you were created to be. And that's what I want to offer to people. So you can probably, I'm sure, hear the emotion in my voice, because my body is filled with it right now, being back on these grounds. I can't think of a more special place to be saying, I humbly accept this call and ask for your support and yours and God's grace.
Thank you, Pam. The chair recognizes William Persall to speak to the call.
I struggled with trying to put some thoughts together. I was away from Michigan for 20 years, courtesy of the Air Force. But I'm so glad that I've been able to be back for 20 years and in fellowship with y'all. When I was a youngster, school age, but not yet 8, sitting in our one-room schoolhouse church in Vesper, there's a mission. And Brother Norm Page said, if we reach out our hand, God will take it. And I reached out my hand to the amusement of several people, which was embarrassing to me. But I felt God take my hand. And as I reflect later, those people who shared that amusing moment helped shape my life. They helped shape my spiritual journey. And I'm so thankful for that. I had a deep spiritual experience at Sanford when I was 14. A week long, in-depth spiritual experience. When I was 16 at Kirtland Temple, we were spoken to. And I tell people I was spoken to by name. I don't know. Some people say it wasn't. But God spoke to me. That message he gave was for me. I know that message was for everybody else too. But at that moment, he was speaking to me to prepare myself for a great work. That great work in the kingdom building of Zion. The marvelous work. You know, you read that so much in the early Doctrine and Covenants sections, the great and marvelous work. And it is. And I didn't understand exactly what that would mean. And in the garden, outside the temple afterwards, a local man came up and confirmed that message. He wasn't present during the service, but he confirmed that message. And as I reflect back on my life, I realize, as many have already stated, so many people who helped shape my understanding, my ability to relate, and the shared responsibilities that I've had. I've had the opportunity to hold, I think, every position in the congregation level. I had a brief stint as pastor at Tawas. We had lost 50% of our congregation overnight. And for the next 6 months, my challenge was to help bring people together and move forward. And recognizing I was extremely limited in what I could do, and asking God for direction and working with the people and working with the district president and saying, please bring Glenn Goff in here to help the person, because I had to leave, again, courtesy of the Air Force. And to see that materialize and to see what's happened since. I've had the opportunity to be overseas, spend 15 months in a Muslim country, to spend 90 days in Italy in a very steeped Catholic tradition during the Christmas season. To have the good fortune of having 5 roommates from the different boroughs of New York City. That's a challenge. Or to have a roommate who's a red-haired Irish Texan. Talk about pride, talk about challenges, you know. But diversity comes in many different ways. I had an opportunity to spend 6 weeks, I think. It may have been shorter than that, but it seemed that long. With a young lady, along with my daughter and her kids, who is from France. And really get some in-depth understanding of the cultural differences and the society norms and those things. God has placed so many opportunities for me to grow and to understand challenges that people have. I've got 20-some years in emergency medicine experience. My time in the Air Force, well, some of it was emergency medicine. My primary focus was on preventative medicine and wellness. And that's what I think of when I think mission of the church. Wellness of body, mind, and soul, and our spiritual health. I don't know exactly the path that I'm on, but I know God has always been there and he's always gone before me. And I humbly accept this call and pray that I am up to it.
Thank you, Bill. All 9 calls are before the body at this time. We're going to vote on these using your device or on polling. So the question before the body is on approving the calls that have been presented and spoken to. It's going to say 70 calls on the online poll, but this is, again, all 9 calls, 70 high priest and evangelists combined in one vote. We're going quickly, so Ben, if you can start the 30-second countdown in person. While we're waiting for the polls to close here, I'll ask one last time if there are any needs for assistance voting in the Sanford Campground Board election. Anyone in person needing assistance voting? Okay, and anyone online needing assistance voting in the election? Please make sure you contact Linda. Okay, there is a majority in favor. The calls to the 9 priesthood offices are approved. Thank you to all 9 of you for accepting those calls and stepping forward in ministry. The chair would share that just following the business session, before we leave for lunch, we will have a worship focused on the evangelist ordinations for Bill and Pam. So please stay after our last motion and adjournment for that worship. This afternoon, after the lunch break, we'll regather at 2 o'clock with a prayer for peace and then flow into the worship, including the high priest ordinations with the addition of Dave Cushway, whose call was approved last year. And then the 2 calls to 70 will be, ordinations will be performed on Sunday morning in the 11 o'clock worship at that time. The next item of business is resolution 3. The chair would draw your attention to page 47 for resolution 3. Before the question comes to the body for debate, the chair would entertain any questions about resolution 3. Appears to be no one online asking a question. Anyone in person seeking a question? Okay, we'll proceed then. The resolution, there's a question. All right, resolution 3 is proposed by the Coldwater congregation. And it reads, resolve that the Journey House building be offered for sale, and resolve that the funds from such a proposed sale be used after following all directives and procedures regarding the sale of church properties for the use of the Mission Center in support of congregational initiatives. The congregation leaders were not sure if they would be able to connect or be in person at that time. So on behalf of the congregation, the motion has been approved and it is before the body at this point. It will be open for debate. The chair will share a couple of comments on behalf of the congregation in favor of the motion that was proposed. The points offered: it is not used for Community of Christ students anymore. 2, it is an older building with potentially huge maintenance and upkeep costs. 3, it is a valuable prime piece of real estate so close to campus. 4, smaller congregations are having a harder and harder time supporting outside costs like support of the campus ministry center and also financing our own maintenance, upkeep, and operations. 5th, the conference needs funds to maintain staff and operations in these lean times. And so the chair would now recognize a speech against resolution 3 and then would seek to alternate for and against. Chair recognizes Dave Primo.
I'm a member of the East Lansing congregation, and we, through the pandemic, faithfully monthly paid a fee to support the building. of $700. Even though we were meeting via Zoom at that time. We are now currently back and meeting jointly, both through Zoom and in person in that building. I might say that we're probably one of the few congregations that's doubled our attendance because of the pandemic. We have people from all over the state joining us. So the fact is, while the original intent of the building is not being served, it is serving the purposes of a congregation, and it also creates some potential for some creative thinking on people's part. I think it's been brought up on several occasions in other speeches that we need to start thinking more innovatively, that our methodology is no longer adequate to the needs that we're experiencing in our day. And I think that this is a place that we could use for educating, for training. It has a capacity to overnight people. And so I think that it's a facility that we haven't begun to explore the possibilities for. But in the meantime, it's the home of our congregation, and I really don't want to lose that home.
Thank you. Is there a speech in favor of Resolution 3? Seeing no one seeking to speak in favor, the chair would recognize Morgan Gilbert to speak against.
So I am against this resolution. I just don't see any reason why we would sell it. Based on the budget, we are making about $18,000 profit. And even though it is said it's in a good location, both my brother and sister have lived there, and it is not necessarily a good location. Yes, it is by MSU, but then it goes to the whole, who's gonna buy it? A fraternity could buy it, and do we really want one of our buildings being sold to a fraternity where they could be having parties and doing things we do not want to see one of our properties being used for? And even though the market is good right now and we could make money off of selling it, who knows how long it will sit on the market? It could sit for years and years, and then will it still be able to be even used then? So I am highly against selling this. It has been changed in what it's being used for. As the rest of the church has been changed during COVID, it has just adapted. And I believe it is being used for good things, and I don't think we should sell it.
Are there any speech in favor of Resolution 3? No one seeking the floor online, so the chair would recognize Ben Crowley to speak against Resolution 3 in person.
So I have a very long history with Journey House, as many of you know. Having lived there as a student, resident manager, and now currently back in the house as resident manager. Last year, I chose to sell my house and move back, primarily because I'm so interested in the new purposes of the house. The resolution disturbed me in part because of the whereases that showed just how little understanding there was of the house, what it was and what it always had been. Because it was never bought to house Community of Christ students. It was bought to house any background. And that was always the intent. And that's what we did until it couldn't meet that mission anymore. And that's when the board dissolved. Yeah, the house is almost 100 years old, but if you haven't been there, you don't understand just how exceptionally well it has been taken care of. From the owners, the family that we bought it from, that held it in the family since it's built, to the care and love that it's received over the 20+ years we've had it. It's a phenomenal building. in a wonderful location that we would never be able to replace. And who knows what the next 15 or 20 years will be, because it might be student housing again someday. But in the meantime, we have ideas and options for something new, and it needs time to come to fruition.
Is there any speech in favor? Resolution 3. Chair would recognize Carol Dudley online.
Good afternoon. It's been my joy and pleasure to have an opportunity to be involved with the Journey House. I would like to just remember all of the comments that have been made today regarding drawing the circle wide. We have another opportunity to open up our hearts and our minds to another form of ministry at the Journey House and in many of our congregations. This is my hope and my prayer that we will consider very carefully and very spiritually the opportunity to continue the ministry in various ways, because this has certainly been God's calling to us for many ages. Thank you.
Are there any speeches in favor? Chair would recognize Kim Stambridge in person.
Good almost afternoon. I am against this resolution. I did not think I was going to speak today. I actually read the resolution and thought to myself, well, I don't understand why we would do this. I should probably speak up. And then I said, well, Ben will have words. So thank you, Ben, for speaking up. My sister is Morgan. She's down in South Carolina. She spoke to us through Zoom, and she asked me, should I? So I served as resident manager at Journey House for 2.5 years. The first thing about the resolution is the authorization to sell the campus ministry center. I do want to clarify that campus ministry center is boxing in that building. It's been used for a lot of other things, and for a while it hasn't necessarily been considered a campus ministry center. I do want to ask to clarify, if the building is sold, the church's campus ministry program is not going away, right? I mean, there would still be ministry offered.
Campus ministry could be offered through any congregation or through the mission center.
Okay, so I see it as an opportunity to still use that space for ministering to students in the area more than just Michigan State. When I was there, we had students from Douglas J and Lansing Community College. We had an online student from Central, but the building is in use. It is my understanding that it's not a burden. It's not a financial burden right now on the church. The idea of what may become maintenance costs because the building is getting old. The idea of may is too broad for me. My first month moving in as resident manager, all of a sudden we needed a new furnace, and that costs a lot of money. But people put their heads together, we found a way, we made it work. So selling a building that has so much potential in a time when we are looking at the potential of our church as a whole, to me, is taking too many steps backwards. So I will stop rambling, but as a person who holds that building close, I am against this resolution.
There are no others seeking the floor at this time. The chair would ask Carol Dudley, who'd already spoke. Carol, do you have a question or other?
No, I just wanted to clarify that I didn't really say that I'm against the motion, but I certainly am. And that was my comment about drawing the circle wide, because we certainly can expand our thoughts and our understandings of what our mission is.
Thank you. No one else is seeking the floor, so debate will close. We'll proceed to a vote on Resolution 3. The resolution has not been amended, so the vote is on Resolution 3 as printed. The Journey House building be offered for sale, and resolve that the funds from such a proposed sale be used after following all directives and procedures regarding the sale of church properties for the use of the Mission Center in support of congregational initiatives. Polling will open.
Dan?
Yes.
Just point of clarification, because I think if you vote no, that means you don't want it sold.
Okay, so there's a question about what the meaning of a vote is in this case. Voting yes would approve Resolution 3, which would approve the sale of Journey House or authorize the sale. Voting no would fail the resolution, which would not authorize the sale. Polling is now open. Voting on Resolution 3. Yes to approve the resolution, which would authorize the sale. No to fail the resolution, to not authorize the sale. And while votes are cast, this will be the final request for any assistance to vote in the Sanford Campground election. Voting seems to have slowed, so the chair will ask for 30 seconds to close the poll on Resolution 3. Appears there are 41 votes in favor of Resolution 3 and 199 votes against. There is not a majority. Resolution 3 fails. There will be no action pertaining to Resolution 3. This time, the chair would update the conference that the most recent credentials report for the registration of delegates is 100 in person and 155 online, for a total of 255 delegates participating in the conference. There are no further requests for assistance on voting, so the polls for the Sanford board election will be closed. And while that comes through, we'll proceed to Resolution 4. For the information of the body, Resolution 4, submitted by the Bay City congregation, is a proposal to that 2 vacant positions with 2 remaining years in their term ending 12/31/2024 be added to the slate to be elected and filled by a majority vote of the Mission Center Conference. The proposed resolution conflicts with the Michigan Campground Operating Policy currently in force. This policy is implemented upon the authority of the presiding bishopric according to Community of Christ bylaws. The resolution would be null and void if adopted. Thus, the resolution is an improper motion and is not in order. Similarly, for Resolution 5, with the resolve clauses before you, the proposed resolution conflicts with the Michigan campground operating policy currently in force. This policy is implemented upon the authority and is not in order. Chair recognizes Joyce Primo seeking the floor.
I don't know how to vote on this. It's not on my phone.
There is no vote on Resolution 4 or 5.
Oh.
Okay, the results of the Sanford Campground Board of Directors. Ben Crowley received 123 votes. Gary Gordier received 90 votes. William Persall received 76 votes. 67 votes. Angie Varner received 61 votes. Lisa Valentine received 55 votes. Tammy Morford and John Congleton received 45 votes. Before that, Wayne Addis received 49 votes. Courtney Valentine received 31 votes. The top 5 vote getters for election by plurality are Ben Crowley, Gary Gordier, Amber Billman, Angie Varney, and William Persall. Those 5 are elected to the 3-year terms on the Sanford Campground Board of Directors. Is there any further business to come before the conference? See no one seeking the floor. By way of announcements, an open Zoom link will be available for the afternoon session for those joining online. So this meeting link will not be used any further. This was just for delegate only. So if you want to join the afternoon session, you can go to the Mission Center website on the schedule and click that Zoom link. We will try to email that out to all delegates as well, so they have that in their email. That will be the same link used this afternoon and Sunday morning for the worships. Youth activities and service projects are taking place this evening for those of you here in person after dinner. There'll be younger kid activities in the gym, and service projects will primarily be in the old dining hall area if you want to help do some improvements. Again, to all of you here, there is lunch being offered as a youth camp fundraiser in the dining hall, the gym area. So enjoy that over the lunch break. And then again for dinner. On Sunday morning, there will be a World Conference resolution presentation and dialogue with Apostle Locke Mackay. That will start at 9:00 a.m. with that open Zoom link. So come to that session to hear about the World Conference resolutions, ask your questions about those. And then following that on Sunday at 11 o'clock, there will be a closing worship, which will include communion and ordination of 70s. So if you're participating online, prepare your bread and wine at your location to participate in that. Pastors did receive a bulletin formatted outline of the worship. If you're gathering in your location and someone wants a printed copy, pastors should have received that yesterday, thanks to Karen Smith, who had already prepared that. Is there any further business? No one seeking the floor. Thank you for your participation and service as delegates at the conference this year. Following adjournment, again, we are going to continue into worship for the ordination of Evangelist. So I ask you to stay seated in person and those online, stay connected as we go into that worship. Yes, the chair recognizes Cheryl Seifert.
I would just like, obtrude it is, but I would like to ask the conference to thank you for all the work you've done the past however many years you've been here, knowing that there's been a lot of challenges with COVID, with everything going on personally in your life and everything going on, period, in the world. And I would just like to ask the conference to thank you for all of the stuff you've done.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. That's greatly appreciated. It is a difficult role, as some of you know who've served in that and served in other capacities. So thank you very much. That's very appreciated. At this time, the 2022 Mission Center Conference business session is adjourned. We are now moving into a session on worship focused on blessing, which is the primary role of the evangelist. We will explore that in the coming hymns and readings, and of course, the ordination prayers as well. So I invite you to center yourself, take a moment to breathe, shake through the business meeting, stretch around a little bit if you need to. We're going to be focusing first on this portion of scripture that comes from our theme of 162 verse 8. And then we'll be singing a hymn. Hopefully our music will play well for everyone online and in person. And in that time, we'll do a little bit of adjusting and invite those who are going to be involved in the ordinations and readings to come forward. We're also going to switch this camera so that it points to the chairs where the ordinations will take place so that those online will be seeing that as well. So there'll be a little bit of adjustment as we sing the hymn together. And I'll invite those of you in person to rise if you'd like when that song comes up, just as an opportunity to get up out of your chairs as we start that worship. So as a call into this time of worship, I share with you Doctrine and Covenants, section 162, 8a. You are a good and faithful people, but sometimes you fail to see the power that is resident in your own story and fellowship. Look carefully and listen attentively and serve the Spirit among you. Right, I invite everyone to sing. It's number 638, God Bless Your Church with Strength. The recording should play the first verse as an intro and then that. If you'd like to rise, I invite you to do so. God, we give thanks for the opportunity to gather both in person and via the internet, that we can do business as a means of worship, and that we can also transition into this time of worship. We ask your blessing will continue to flow through this group and flow through this experience. In Jesus' name, amen. Please be seated. Carol Walden serves as an evangelist and as the evangelist group coordinator in Michigan. At this time, we'll recognize Carol to share about the role of the evangelist in the life of the church.
Thank you, Brother Dan. The role of the evangelist. As ministers of blessing, evangelists serve with spiritual vigor, a deep faith in God, and affirm God's unconditional love for all people. Evangelists are companions to individuals and congregations as they together seek a greater awareness of the presence and movement of the Holy Spirit in their lives and the life of the community. Evangelists are called to support congregations to become sacred communities of healing, wholeness, acceptance, and respect for all people. The evangelist also may be called on to offer ministry on a team with the apostle, 70, and high priest to empower congregations to create communities of invitation, generosity, justice, and peace. There are 5 expressions that define evangelists as ministers of blessing. First one, of witness, one who, by God's grace, generously shares the freeing and renewing good news of the gospel as a value bearer and hope giver to make manifest the evangelical in the life of the church. A spiritual companion, one who shares a personal practice, spiritual disciplines, and invites others into a deep, enriching relationship of spiritual growth in times of need and times of plenty. Pastoral prayer presence, one who is loving presence in the midst of the people, especially the congregation, gently leading, praising, encouraging, mentoring, and shepherding on the path of the discipleship. Teaching learner, one who through a lifetime of experience and reflection pursues learning and teaching as a spiritual journey in which knowledge, discernment, wisdom, and experience are shared with others in a relationship together. Living sanctuary, one who is safety and sanctuary with others and stands with them as they face the injustices of systems and structures that diminish human worth and crush dreams of God alone.
Invite you to stay seated as we sing hymn number 328, With Gifts That Differ by Your Grace. Again, the recording should play the first verse once all the way through, and then the 3 verses. hymn 535 by Evangelist Matt Kinzinger, and ask you to come up here. This is the mic we're going to use.
Thank you, Dan. When God's call to serve looms larger than the strength you have today, when the dark of doubt enfolds you, when the voice of fear gives us way, let the peace of Christ assure you, and God's grace will pave the way. When the path's unclear before you, when you don't know where to turn, when the questions that you're asking fail to ease your heart's concern, let the peace of Christ assure you that God's answer you will discern. Should to distant lands and places you be called to share Christ's peace, and the pain of separation bears its weight with no release, let the peace of Christ assure you that God's comfort shall increase. As these hands are laid upon you, may the presence of God's grace bless this prayer of ordination far beyond this time and place. Let the peace of Christ live in you as the Spirit you embrace.
In preparation for the ordination of Pam Luce, I'll invite you to sing number 601, Holy Presence, Holy Teacher. As the song goes forward, I'll ask those up here to bring the two chairs to the front and prepare for the ordination following the hymn. At this time, Pam Luce will be ordained to the office of High priest and evangelist by Apostle Lach Mackay, assisted by Evangelist Anita Myers.
God of love and compassion, it is with joy that we place our hands both physically and symbolically on the head of Pam Luce to ordain her a high priest and evangelist in Community of Christ. Lord, we know Pam to be a person of great compassion and spiritual awareness, and a gifted listener, peacemaker, counselor, spiritual guide, and facilitator. May she be blessed as she supports those around her on their spiritual journeys. We pray that Pam's gentle spirit will help others recognize her as a living sanctuary and pastoral presence, and may her giftedness in resolving conflict and peacemaking make her and us forerunners of Christ's peace in a polarized and weary world. May the Holy Spirit amplify her voice as she proclaims the worth of all persons. We are so very grateful, Lord, for the many gifts you have bestowed on Pam and for her drive to better herself in ways that equip her to make life better for all of us. We know that our communities will be made stronger through her. And for this, we offer praise and thanks to you. Amen.
I'd like you now to turn to hymn 577, Called by Christ to Love Each Other, as we prepare for the ordination of William Purcell. This time, William Persall will be ordained to the office of High Priest and Evangelist by Apostle Lachlan Mackay, assisted by Evangelist Diana Vanderkar.
God of beginning and end, we lay our hands literally and figuratively on the head of William Persall and ordain him a high priest and evangelist in the Melchizedek priesthood of Community of Christ. Lord, we recognize Bill's resilience and steadfastness during a time of significant transitions in his life. He has pastored and served in campground and mission center leadership roles, and his life experience has helped to prepare him to serve in new ways. His consistent pastoral presence was a blessing to family and friends as their congregation made the decision to close. At a time when many turn inward, Bill continued the path of lifelong learner, further preparing himself to be in service to others. He truly is a pastoral presence, a living sanctuary, a teaching learner, and a spiritual companion. Bill's time in military service provided him with an opportunity to experience the beauty of diversity, equipped and perhaps played a role in the development of his desire to protect the most vulnerable. As he takes on this new role as a minister of blessing, and it is our prayer that he, in turn, will be a blessing to your people. In the name of Jesus, the peaceful one. Amen.
This time we'll have a reading of hymn 538 by Evangelist Tom Banks.
Lord God, we meet in this Jesus' name and give you praise for the daily care Christ's servant ministry and grace uphold the work in which we share. Through ordination, we affirm your gifts of love and dignity. May the good Spirit now confirm this call to serve humanity. By grace, our priestly gifts received, diverse, unique, sustained by skill, to help us all meet human needs as we greet as the great cause comes nearer still.
We'll now proceed to the close of this worship with the singing of a hymn and then a reading by Evangelist Laretha Smith. I would invite all of you who are present and participating in the conference to make sure that you return your name tag and voting device and check out on the way out, so we get all of those back. And remind you that there will be lunch available, and we'll reconvene here at 2:00 in the afternoon for the prayer for peace. Thank you to all who have come and participated today. Thank you and congratulations to those who have just been ordained and will be ordained. At this time, invite you to stand if you are comfortable for singing our closing hymn, and stay standing as Laretha offers the final reading after the hymn.
according to the gifts that God has given to each one, we all are called to serve now, to represent the Son. May each of us give servant leadership in rich humility, enabling others in the task of Christ-like ministry. Together, may we labor on as we accept God's call, accomplishing the work that is entrusted to us all.
Amen. Go in peace. Enjoy the lunch break.